All right. Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing on this beautiful day? My name is Janelle. I am your host of Mom 365. So, welcome to another episode of Mom 365. And we welcome you to the Indulge in Self Lounge. Today, I have my beautiful co host, Ms. Josephine, and I'm going to give her a minute to introduce herself before we get into the conversation.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joe, and I'm a mom of two. I am a working mom, so I'm trying to balance everything and, you know, trying the best that I can. It's not easy, but I'm trying.
Okay. Well, Miss Josephine, I'm going to tell them a little bit more about who you are, what you do.
Yes, so I am in nursing right now, and I am also trying to get into the real estate market, and so just trying um, to at least at some point stop working and start doing my own thing, my own business.
I love it. I love it. So, I got the pleasure of meeting Miss Josephine when I followed Love to Texas, and I met her at my very first nursing job at North Hills Hospital. It was a pleasure to meet her. So I am so grateful that you have decided to grace us with your presence today. So today we're going to get into the conversation. We're going to talk about financial education for kids and the importance of teaching our children about money, budgeting, saving, and starting it at an early age. So, Ms. Josephine, before we get started, one of the most important things that we do here at Mom 365, we answer the question, what does motherhood look like for you 365 days a year? So that's going to be my very first question. So tell us about your motherhood journey.
Um, well, it's been a beautiful journey. Motherhood for me is a 24-hour job, pretty much. I am
Yes.
always busy with the kiddos. You watch them even when they're sleeping. Sometimes they wake up. You have to be available. Sometimes, even when you're sick, you still have to be available for them. Even if you're at work, you still have to be responsible and know what's going on with them and prepare stuff for them. So it's a 24-hour job. It's a 20, but it's a beautiful thing. I love it.
Yeah, I always say it's the second shift. It's the shift
Yes,
after the work shuts down, the
yes,
shift that never stops and you don't get paid for it. I guess with hugs and kisses.
that's true.
All right, Miss Josephine. So let's get started. So, what inspired you to prioritize financial education for your children and introduce it at such an early age?
Well, for me, it was more like I didn't grow up learning about these things. And the unfortunate part is when you start knowing about it, it's like at an later stage, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I want my kids to know about it at an early age. What is budgeting? What is how to spend money? Where to put your money at? Because I'm sure if I had been taught this, it maybe in school or at an earlier age, I would have been somewhere uh, better position than where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I can understand that. That makes sense. Yeah, because I'm still maneuvering that world myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, can you explain why teaching children about money, budgeting, and saving is so essential for their future?
It's very important because I've seen a lot of grown adults who have good jobs. They're doctors, they're engineers, or whatever, and they struggle with how to make money work for them. And it's sad because you find that they're earning a lot of money, but they don't have anything to show for it. So
Yeah.
if you start at a young age, just the basics, hey, you buy this, you save that, how much do you accumulate by the end of the year? Stuff like that for the kids. At some point, as they keep growing, you go into more deeper stuff. It's easier for them to know and to learn. As kids, they learn faster than anybody else. And so I just thought it would have been a great thing for them to start at an earlier age than for people who are now grown adults to start learning about finances, which is still okay if you learn about it, but the earlier the better.
Yeah, it's true.
Hmm.
It is. I agree with you because a lot of times, even myself, I make a lot of money, but still find myself living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
You know, that's something we have to change. We got to change the cycle on that, so our
Hmm.
children have a better understanding of how to save and plan ahead and things like that.
Yes.
Okay, so can you share examples of age appropriate activities or tools you've used to introduce financial concepts to your children?
Okay, so what I did with my kids, I opened some accounts for them, like trading accounts, like Charles Schwab, type of accounts. So they are so excited because hey, I have money in some kind of an account. And so I asked them, hey, so what do you want me to buy for you? Like my daughter, she's like, oh, buy me Disney, buy me the Disney stock. My son, because he loves Tesla, he loves those Teslas, seeing them all over the place. He's like, buy me Tesla, buy me Tesla. So it's kind of like an excitement for them. So I try to buy the things that they kind of are familiar with. Um, and then, for them, it's an excitement because they're like, oh, how is Disney doing today? How did Disney do? Things like that. So that's how I kind of introduce them to the market. And then as far as like just little money, they get money for their birthdays or when family members come around, they leave them money. So my thing was, for the monies that you get, if you give me like half of it, I'll double it. They can
Mm,
spend the other half on, stuff. I mean, if it's little money, but if it's like 200, $300, I'm like, okay, you get like $50. Spend it on whatever you want. And then the rest of it, I'll keep it for you and I'll double it. So if you give me
mm.
150, I put in 300 into your stock market. So into your stock market account. So we've been kind of doing that, and that has really been getting them motivated to say, "Oh, I'm gonna have double, my money." So they love that concept. And with the money that they do get to spend, it's we teach them, okay, you're going to the store. What are you spending? They see how much they spend, what the change that they get, how much they get back, and how else to save their little money that they have left over for the next transaction. So little things like that where we just kind of go to the store and let them pick out one thing, and they just kind of learn how to not spend all their money in one day, which my son used to do that a lot, just spend all of it in one day. But now he's getting better to where he will say, okay, let me get this, it's only $10 or it's on sale, and then they'll buy that, and at least they have a little bit more money that can stretch. So that's the other thing that I'm trying to teach them, is to let their money stretch.
Okay. All right. I
Mhm,
like that. I like that.
mhm.
So, how do you navigate discussions about the value of money and responsible spending with your kids?
Okay. So as far as the value of money, I try to always ask them like, okay, you bought this and you bought that. Which one is more valuable? Like sometimes we talk about like if you had like $1,000, or if you had like 20 grand or whatever, what would you spend it on? Just little discussions to where, like my son, now he tells you, I'd rather buy a building than buy candy. I'd rather buy a store than buy clothes. So,
An
things like
investor.
that. I mean, he's not going to buy a store, but at least he is aware of things like that, where he would rather do real estate than just buy clothes, or like it's not anything bad, but at least they kind of know the value of money and what things will give better returns for them.
Right.
So that has been very helpful, those little conversations with them.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I like that. That's important because now he's saying I'd rather buy a building than buy clothes. So he's
exactly,
trying to say I want my assets to buy
exactly,
my liabilities. So he
exactly.
understands it to a certain extent.
To
He
extent,
hasn't processed it yet.
no, no,
But
not
you're
at all.
teaching the foundation and the basics of it. I like that.
Hmm.
Okay, I gotta share with you what I got the kids, but we'll talk
Okay.
as we're going. So, what role does allowances or financial incentives play in your approach in teaching them about financial education?
Okay, so They do get a little bit of allowance every week. I try not to do too much because I want them to work inside of the house as their house, not think that, okay, they're doing me a favor, because they're not. They're learning how to clean their room, they're learning how to clean after themselves. So I do give them an allowance, but it's not that much. And when they do get that allowance, they try to save it. They have a little jar where they put, or my daughter has a little purse that she puts her money. So at the end of the month, she's counting like, oh, okay, I earned like $40 or $50. And they do know about taxes too, because at the end of the month, I'm like, okay, but you still owe me money for taxes. So they kind of are aware. They don't know how to calculate that, but they know they're supposed to return at least maybe $5 out of the 50 or whatever. And I'm like, okay, those are taxes. So you still have to always pay your taxes. So they know about taxes. They don't know how to calculate that, but they know that whatever money they earn, they're always supposed to pay taxes. Because I'm like, you don't want to get in trouble for not paying taxes. So they know that, oh, okay, end of the month, here's your money, here's $5 back for the taxes that I owe. So things like that has kind of helped us to for them to be aware of things out there in terms of like finances and how little things work. We're not doing anything big, just the little steps for kids that is
Okay.
easier for them to understand.
Okay, Uncle Sam, I see you taking taxes out them babies' money. You letting them know that no matter what you do, Uncle Sam gonna get his, right?
Yes.
What they say? Give unto Caesar what is due unto him, or something.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I like that. You got to teach them that too. It makes sense.
That is
You're gonna
true.
get your money, but you got to give. You got to pay the people who got to get their portion of it,
That
and the
is
rest of
correct.
it you invested in what you need to.
Yeah.
Okay, Mom. All right, I see you over there. Okay. So, can you describe the importance of setting financial goals and priorities with your children? What kind of financial goals do they set for themselves?
So pretty much a lot of times they're setting goals as far as like how much money they want to make by the end of the month, by the end of
Mm,
the year, by the end, like because they're looking at their accounts and they're seeing like the money grow. So a lot of
mm,
times they're like, I mean, I really want to work. I want to make this amount of money so that by the end of the month I have, this in my savings. And for them, just setting those goals helps them to stay focused because my kids are all over the place. They're like, oh, one day they're forgetting that, oh, I have to save money. So them just having the goals does help them to keep track of which way they're supposed to go, which direction they're supposed to take. That has been very helpful for them.
Need to remind them. I think you froze. I lost you for a second. You still there? Okay, there
Yeah,
you
I'm
go.
here.
Your kid is
Yeah.
in the way too.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how do you handle the introduction of money, complex financial concepts such as investing, banking, as your children are growing?
So I try to keep them involved as much as I can to their level of understanding. Like if I'm going to the bank, I try to explain to them, hey, this is what I'm doing. Let's go to the bank. Let's make a deposit. Let's withdraw some money. If I'm on the market, sometimes if the market is, going in a way that it's easy for them to understand, I try to engage them and say, hey, come and see how Tesla is doing today. So they come sometimes at the end of the day like, how did Tesla do today? And then I show them, oh, it went this way, it went that way, or how did Tesla do this month? So I try to show them the charts, but I try to explain it in the most simplest way that they can
Right.
understand. In
Oh,
that way they have some kind of knowledge. They don't really fully understand what's going on, but they have an idea.
okay. Yeah. And it makes sense. So as they get a little older, they'll really start to put two and two. Oh, this is what mom was trying to teach
Yes.
us.
Yes.
I like it. I like it. So, have you faced any challenges or misconceptions in teaching kids about money, and how have you addressed them?
um Well, I've kind of had some friends who just thought, like kids should not be introduced to money because then they get greedy and this and
Mm,
that. So I'm like, I'm not teaching them to. make money to go buy a purse and go buy this and that. I'm just trying to teach them to be aware of what's out there, because it's things that we were never taught in school. I was never taught how to like make money and where to park the money or whatever. Like nobody ever really taught me that. So
Yeah,
for me, that's what I'm trying to teach them so that it just doesn't come to them when they're in their 30s or in their 40s or when it's too late. That's
yeah.
what I'm trying to do. But I know some people think, hey, don't teach people kids about money because they can start, trying to get more and maybe try to steal or get greedy. And I'm like, no, it's just little transactions that we do. We don't do much. And I always make sure that, they have what they need anyway. So this is just, I don't want to say play money for them, but it's more of like educational money.
I like that because you know what it is. You're setting the foundation for them to be responsible with money.
Yes.
Because I don't feel like you should come into a lot of money and then that's when you're trying to figure out what I need to be doing with this money. But so one of the things you said. So my dad was one of those people that believed that kids shouldn't have money, and
Mhm.
his philosophy behind that is that when kids have easy access to money, then they're more likely to get into things they have no business getting into,
Okay.
and maybe they can buy drugs or cigarettes or things like that.
Yeah.
So I can understand that too, but I feel like the part that was missing is kids shouldn't just have money, they should have education with money. You
That's
got
true.
to teach
That's true.
them, what is money for, why do we use it, where do we, because as a kid, what I used to think, I
Mhm.
would see something on TV and I'd be like, oh, I want that. My daddy just need to write a check so I could get that. But guess what?
Right, right,
I
right,
didn't realize that the check was attached to money in a bank account. I just
yeah,
thought it was you just write it and you can get whatever you want.
you're right, right,
You
right, right.
know. So you're doing a good thing to start early, and yeah, I understand what the other people are saying, but I think they're not looking at it from a broader mindset. As we gotta tell our kids about money, how to
Yeah.
spend it, how to use it, why it's important. I feel like when you don't tell them about it, that's when you introduce greed, because
Yes.
when they finally get it, they have
Mhm.
no clue what to do with it, so they misuse it, they abuse it, and things like that.
Right, right,
I
right.
like that, Mom. I like that. So, what impact do you believe financial education has on a kid's financial literacy, independence, and their overall well being?
Uh, well, I think with them kind of having that knowledge, it empowers them. It
Yes.
empowers them to do greater because you want to make money, you want to work, whatever job you have, your goal is always to keep that money and to make that money work for you. So if it's not really about how much money you make, but it's always about how much money you can keep.
Mm.
So them growing up knowing that it's important to save, it's important to keep money and to make money work for you will really empower them to, I mean, to do the right thing and to always do the right steps into being more successful. So I feel like what I'm doing right now is, empowering them to success.
I like that. I like that because we have to empower our children,
Hmm.
especially little black and brown boys and girls,
Yeah.
because they have to be able to understand that we are worthy of wealth, we
Hmm.
are worthy of luxury, we are
Hmm.
worthy to be rich and to have access to a lot of money.
Yes.
And it's about what you're doing with that money. So I like that. You have to empower them and you have to set that foundation early so they understand that it's not just other people that should have this. It's
Mhm.
okay for us to have this too. We
Yes.
are entitled to, well, I won't say entitled because that's probably not the best word, but
Hmm.
I feel like it's also our birthright to be
Okay.
wealthy.
Okay.
It's our birthright to be able to, live a life that's abundance.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, we got to empower them babies. Yes, we do. Can you recommend books, games, or resources that are useful for teaching financial concepts to your children?
Okay, so for my kids, they have the little, I forgot who the authors are, but they do have the Kid Finances. That's
Yes.
what they call the books, Kid Finances 101, 102. And those little books are, just talking about, well, they first teach the kids how to count the money, what what value the money has. And then after that, they kind of show them the banks where to go and get your money from, or to keep your money. And then they also talk about, like the stock market and
Mhm.
other ways of saving money, real estate, and businesses, just starting businesses. But it's simple, to where a kid can kind of read about it. Simple words like, hey, I'm going to the bank, I'm going to get money, this and that. So they had like, they loved it. They loved it because we went to the library, and when you don't know, you don't know. But when we went there and we started researching and looking for those books, they have a lot of them at the
Yeah.
local library, and they're free.
Oh, nice,
So it's
nice.
always good to take your kids to the kids section of the library, where you can find those financial books for them.
Yeah, I like that. So, when you say all of that, it makes me. That's what I was going to tell you about earlier about one of the authors that I follow, and I
Hmm.
like, Boyce Watkins. So,
Okay.
Dr. Boyce Watkins, he has books on financial literacy, on stock market, on businesses. So, I
Hmm.
purchased that for my kids. We haven't sat down yet to go through them, but
Okay.
now we're having this conversation. I'm like, yeah, we need to open them up because they came. I bought them the flashcards so they can learn certain words as what the stock market is, and
Hmm. Hmm.
just learning the terminology behind money. And I think sometimes even us as grown adults, when
Yeah.
we see certain words, we're intimidated
Yes.
because we don't know it, we don't understand it, and
Hmm.
it's simple,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because we don't have the background knowledge and it seems hard. But when you start teaching them as kids and they're hearing stuff like stock market, credit, businesses, and all the other definitions and terminology that goes with it, they're empowered.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true.
so
I
when
agree.
they see it in the world, they can compete
That is true.
because
That is very true.
the most important thing in this world is survival of the fittest.
That is so
And
true.
when you can compete, you survive. Because
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is a competitive world, especially when it comes to money, business, and those kind of things. When you're trying to climb up, not that we want to teach our kids to compete. We're talking about like a healthy competition,
Right.
because a
Right.
lot of times we're competing with ourselves to get to our next goals and our next level.
Right. Right.
But when you start trying to get loans and things like that, it
Hmm.
requires you having to do certain things. So that's where the competition kind of comes in.
Right. Right. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
So, how do you strike the balance between teaching kids about money and avoiding the overemphasis on materialism?
That is a good question and not easy to do.
Yeah.
But I always try to instill in the kids that, um, the t-shirt that you're wearing, look at your other friends. Because the fortunate thing is my kids go to a school where kids don't really care too much about, like the big labels or whatever. So I always go to that and use that as an example. Hey, you see your little friends, they're all wearing like t-shirts, nothing too special, nothing too fancy. So they are not that materialistic because of
Mhm.
the environment that they're in, which has
Yeah.
been very helpful. And of course, I do try to tell them, hey, you're beautiful the way you are. What you wear and what you have is not going to define you.
Not at all.
So they have a clear understanding of things like that.
Yeah, I like that because I tell my kids that too. We
Yeah.
still wear Target. We still
Yeah.
wear Walmart. We still, I
Mhm.
mean, we do name brand stuff. But one thing I always try to tell them, because they have older uncle and things like that, so they see
Mhm.
him into the name brand. The one thing I always tell my kids is, you got to remember that everything you put on your body is somebody else's last name.
Right, right, right.
So it's okay to advertise somebody else's brand, but I
Mhm.
want you to get into the thinking of, how can my last name become a brand?
Right,
So
right,
before you're
right,
rushing to put somebody else's stuff on, I want you to think about, how can I create something of a legacy that's bigger than me?
right.
So that's most important for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I agree. We're not into material things. All that stuff comes and goes,
Right, right,
you
right.
know, and that's what I always try to just let them know. We ain't got to worry about, as long as you look clean and your hair is brushed, you look good. Yeah, material stuff, all of that stuff is replaceable.
That's true. That's
So the
true.
things that try to invest is the character, your integrity, the
Yeah.
things that are going to take you a long way in life,
Right,
values, the
right.
foundation of values.
That's true.
I like that.
That's
Can
true.
you share personal stories or experiences that highlight the benefits of learning financial education in your family?
Um, my family, for me, I never really got that experience until I grew older. And so it was like a bit of a difference, being in college and then you're seeing your other peers who have parents who've taught them financial education. So that's how I started learning, and it was a bit of like a aha moment, like, oh, this is what other people are doing. This is how other people are getting scholarships or their college is already paid for. I would want to do that for my children too.
Yeah.
So things like that, I kind of started learning it as when I was older. So it was it was a different type of feeling for me because I always wished that if I had gotten that information or at least that teaching when I was younger, I feel like I could have been way far away from where I'm at, way much better.
Yeah.
So that was my experience as far as like financial education is concerned. And with other family members, I mean, we do have some that I'll tell you an example of one that he is a doctor who filed for bankruptcy
Mm.
because he was never taught anything about how to keep the money. The only thing he knew was make the money, make the money, make the money. And he made good money. He made a lot of good money, but made bad choices like buy the expensive cars, the expensive homes, have two, three cars, and all these houses. And then at the end of
Mm.
the day, you still owe taxes and you lose all those houses.
Yeah.
So much to say in all this, it's just important to learn about your finances and
Yeah.
to know the importance of keeping your money.
Yeah. So he got caught up in the materialism of it all.
Yes,
So
yes,
somebody didn't tell him early on, when you get money, it's like the people who win the lottery. The minute
yes,
they get money, they might have been, poor, and all of a sudden they get all this money and they right back right where they started because they don't
yes.
know what to do with it. They're not
Yes, that's
educated.
true. That's true. Or even the
Yeah.
basketball players or some of these celebrities that we see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Signing bad contracts and things like that because,
exactly.
they
Exactly.
don't have the right people on their side, on their team. Because that's another thing. If you don't have the education, you got to have the right people around you to
Right,
help
right, right,
you maneuver through and to get the education.
right, right.
Yeah. So, how does fostering financial education align with your overall parenting philosophy and values?
Um, for me, we don't value money as much as we value family relationships. We put family first, then money second, so that I mean, whatever it is that we do, it's not like, oh, I have to make money and forget about my family or whatever, because I do whatever I do, but at the end of the day I still put my family first. I'm not like one of those working moms where you're gone forever. So I try to do that and to instill family values in my kids and to show them that, hey, you can do both, but at the same time never forget family. Family is important first, and family values, and then money comes second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I like that. So, what advice would you give to parents who may be unsure about how to start teaching their children about money and budgeting?
Just start small. Start small. you know um Talk to them 1 or 2 minutes a day or 5 minutes, and then with time they'll start showing interest, and talk about the things that they're familiar with. Let's not make it complicated to where we're talking about, oh, the balance sheet and this and that. No, just simple stuff. Hey, I gave you $5. How much did you save? Did you save $1 or did you save $2? Things like that. Where are you going to keep your money? Are you going to keep it somewhere safe so you don't lose it? And how much are you wanting to save? What's your goal? Things like that. So
Yeah,
when you start talking about simple things like that, it makes sense for them and it keeps their interest.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, how do you model responsible financial behavior for your children through your own actions and your own decisions?
So for me, I am not a very, you know, extravagant type of person. I try to, save money. I'm not out there just buying anything and everything. And even if we go to like the store, I'm always trying to explain to the kids that, hey, we can't buy this at this time. Either it's too expensive for us or it's not something that we need.
Right.
Do we need it or do we just want it?
Want it.
So we always try to differentiate that for the kids to understand, hey, it's not always about what we want. It's about things that we need to buy.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. It kind of puts your priorities in place, right? Like you said, teaching them about needs versus wants.
Hmm.
Do I need to pay my bills today or do I need to go get that outfit? You got to be able to prioritize what's important. So
Very
I
true.
like that.
Very
Okay.
true.
So, what future impact do you hope early financial education will have on your children as they grow into adulthood?
Oh, my goal is for them to be responsible adults and to be financially educated. I think that's more important than uh, a lot of jobs that we have out there. People, I understand, you want to be a doctor, you want to be an engineer, or whatever it is, but financial education is very, very important.
Yeah.
To where sometimes I look at my friends who are in finance and I'm like, wow, you guys are lucky. You know about these taxes, you know about saving money and all that stuff. So, I mean, they're a step ahead.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know what? You said the lawyers and the doctors, but I love to hear those stories about those parents and grandparents who were once like janitors and housekeepers and
Mhm.
they did those kind of jobs, but they were able to leave their children like
Something. Yeah.
inheritance that were ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you know
Yeah.
what? It's because they understood the value of money, of saving, of
Hmm.
planning,
Yeah.
and it's good.
Yeah.
So it's like education is important on all levels, no matter if you don't have, it's just important to know and understand.
Right. Right. Right.
So, what are some practical tips for parents to create financially educational environment for their kids? Did you
Oh,
lose me?
froze. No.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. So, I'm going to repeat that again.
Okay.
I apologize. What are some practical tips for parents to create financially educational environment for their kids?
I'm sorry. What did you say?
What are some practical tips for parents to create financially educational environment for their kids?
Um, Well, for me, it's more like just get them involved in stuff that you do. If, let's say, like I said, if we go to the store or whatever, get them involved. Let them see what you're doing. Let them purchase certain things with their own little $5 and know how to save their own little money. Make it practical for them. If
Okay.
you make it practical for them, it's much better. I always feel like the more they practice, the better it is for them than just to talk about it. I mean, we do have to talk about it, yes, but also let them be a part of uh the whole experience.
Okay, I like that. So,
Yeah.
can you suggest activities or practices that families can incorporate to teach financial skills together?
Can you what? Sorry.
Can you suggest activities or practices that families can incorporate to teach financial skills together?
Okay. So a lot of times for us, like I said, going to the library, reading books, um, is very helpful. And then we also just talking about it and being on the market during the daytime and showing them like their accounts and how the market played out during the day, things like that. It engages them and makes them, have more questions and have interest as well.
Okay, I like that. I like that. So, what message or words of encouragement would you like to share with other parents interested in providing financial education for their children?
I would say just start small. Just start small, especially if they're young kids. Just start small. Start with the simple wording and simple activities that they can understand. And with the bigger kids, it's always good too to start small and try to engage them in things that they enjoy doing. Don't make it boring, just make it exciting for them. Do
I
things
like
that
that.
they love to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I think another person too that has some financial resources for kids is Robert Kawasaki. If I said that right, I think he has a board game out. I know he has one for adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he has some now too. So I like that. So I like this conversation about empowering our children to become financially literate, to
Hmm.
know how to spend their money, to know how to save their money, how to invest, how to get into businesses.
Hmm.
We have to just, I think the most important thing about educating our kids about finances is knowing that when we are no longer here, they have an understanding of how to survive, how to live. You know what I mean? How to
Right.
make money, how to keep money, how to, so those kind of things. I think we have to look at it from a broader perspective when it comes to teaching our children those kind of things. So I can appreciate that.
Hmm.
So now, Mom, we talking about self-care. We're talking about motherhood 365 days a year. After we finish talking about all this money saving, money investing, and all that good stuff,
Hmm.
tell me what it is that you do for self-care, Mom, once you get off that mommy shift. When you
I
do.
try to spend some time to myself,
Okay.
whether it's just quiet time in the house in my own room by myself, or whether it's going out to the movies or going out to do something that I love to do, going to the mall, going shopping, or whatever it is. I always give myself time to myself without having any responsibilities of like, oh, I need to cook, I need to clean, I need to do this. So I always feel like that's very important because that helps me be me. Because a lot of times as moms, we kind of lose ourselves trying to make everybody else happy, and then we forget about ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I always try to take time for me, whether it's just going for a drive and going buy your own ice cream and just drive around, listen to some music or something calming. So yeah.
Okay, I like that, Mom. I really do. So, as we wind down the conversation, are there any tips, encouragement, any kind of support that you would like to offer to other moms that are going through this motherhood journey?
Um, yes, I would like to say setting goals is very important. Just set goals that you want to do, and also set goals for your own relaxation as well. Because sometimes, like I said, we always forget about ourselves. We always want to take care of everybody. So sometimes, if you set a goal to say every Saturday, I want to do this, I want to pamper myself, or I want to do this just for me, you know it's a reminder for you to do that. It does it always happen? No, it doesn't, because we're moms.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to do it, but it just doesn't happen because kids need you more. But always try to have that goal, set goals to have your me time.
Yes, I like that. I like that. Thank you, Miss Josephine. So
You're welcome.
before I end the show, you want to let them know where they can follow you? Unfortunately, Miss
um
Josephine doesn't have social media, right?
yeah, I'm not really on social media. I'm so like super busy with the kiddos. I am hardly on social media. But
Okay.
I will be on this platform if ever people have questions. I'm happy to come and respond to them and help in any way that I can.
All right. We appreciate you, Mom. So, I like to end with a quote. So, today's quote, since we're talking about finances for our children, one of the greatest gifts you can give your kids is to prepare them to be responsible, empowered adults around money. So, remember that. You want them to be empowered. You want them to be responsible. When they touch money, you want to know that they're doing the right things with it and putting it in the right places so that their money can make money for them. That's important.
Yep.
So, like we always like to say here on Self Indulgent, like Ms. Josephine said, we believe that moms have to stop pouring from an empty cup. You got to prioritize yourself, your self care. You got to prioritize your health and your wellness. Because in order for you to be any good to those around you, you got to be good to yourself first. So like we love to say here at Self-Indulgent, put yourself first and self-indulge. Until next time on Mom 365, we thank you all for tuning in. We ask you to continue to like, to subscribe, and to follow us so that we can continue this motherhood journey together. And also send in your questions because we want to start, having more conversation around the things that mothers need. Because this is it's a community and a village that we're looking to build here. So we want it to be ongoing, and we want to make sure that the conversation are meeting your needs. So we want to thank you, and we thank Miss Josephine for being with us today, for
Thank you.
gracing us with her presence. We truly, truly appreciate you, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Until next time, everybody, on Mom 365.